Episode 5. Sonic and the Secret Scrolls. Sounds like Sonic and the Secret Rings, only more original. We start off with Sonic being blindfolded by Tails for a surprise. If it's not Chuck is free, then that won't be a phenomenal surprise. What, is it a bunch of chili dogs? Sonic's led to a lame-looking biplane, which he isn't interested in at all. Sally talks about an ancient city hidden in the mountains, which immediately reminded me of the Hidden City of the Ancients. And the secret scrolls in it are magical, but no one's been able to find them, except the people who first found out about them in the first place. You know, to have that myth at all. She also says they can only see the city in the air. Nicole will let them go to the place, and Sonic, after some tedious filler arguing with Sally, says that he thinks they'll be spotted by robots if they go in the plane. So he insists on going by ground. This feels like a really arbitrary argument. Bunny asks Antoine if he's afraid of flying. Yay, more pointless filler. Gee, I wonder if he's afraid of something. It's okay for him to be afraid, it makes him sympathetic in theory, but he doesn't have to talk about it, that's not funny. The plane goes downhill and off a cliff, but the throttle's locked up. So the plane starts falling towards the river. Just in time, the plane starts flying properly because Sally and Rotor pulled the throttle together. They fly the plane up to the mountain city, which they're mesmerized by the appearance of. They're easily impressed. Also, they're not going to meet anybody in this place, because that'd be interesting. Then Rotor's worried that the plane won't stop before going off the mountain, so Sonic makes it slow down by pulling a rope behind it. Wait, how did he even get here without being in the plane? Did he build up a lot of momentum and jump really far? Bunny asks if she can open her eyes now, referring to herself in the third person. It's nice to see her being cowardly, even if Antoine one-ups her. Antoine wastes some more time denying that he's ever been scared. Sally refuses to thank Sonic because she says since they were in the plane, they'd be flying if they fell off the cliff. But fortunately, when Sonic asks the know-it-all where the plane would even land, Sally says, "Oh," and thanks him. I hate that she was even reluctant to thank him at all. Normally I like Sally, but this right here, this SatAm Sally, this is probably why people hate her. Not for any sort of behavior she has in the comic. Nicole uses her bullshit powers to translate the ancient language of Mobius because Mobius has only one ancient language somehow. Sonic spin dashes through some bushes to clear a way for the heroes. Fortunately, none of them nag him about hurting nature. The bush fixes itself, which creeps the heroes out. I'd hate if this place turned out to actually be made by Robotnik. The city being simply magical would be a nice, refreshing break from Robotropolis. There's a windstorm which threatens to blow everyone away, so they all grab hands and Sonic runs around. Then the other heroes briefly disappear, only to walk behind Sonic. It turns out that the shadow they were in makes them invisible when they're standing in it. Nicole uses bullshit to translate a message. Each marker represents a test. Intelligence, spirit, and courage. What's spirit even supposed to mean? Antoine sits down tired, since he's a wimp and can't stand walking for a while. And Sally says they're looking for a chair. When the sun rises, it creates a beam of light showing them an armchair, which glows, and for some reason Sonic is complimented by Sally on this, when he didn't really do anything impressive. I think he pointed out to them where to look, but that's such a meager achievement compared to saving their lives. They sit on it and get sent over to a tower. Rotor asks why there's two scrolls here. Sally says that one is fake, and if they approach the wrong platform, the temple will explode. Bunny talks about the hieroglyphics, and Sally figures out that since they completed the test of intelligence by seeing where the armchair was, this is the test of spirit. That's the weakest test of intelligence ever. Sally walks towards one of the platforms, which is a 50-50 chance, and of course she gets it right because this is a kid's cartoon. That's not a test of spirit, it's a test of luck. How could anyone possibly know where to go? I hate that the messages Nicole translates are so cryptic. This is the only non-cryptic message. She talks about a wind tunnel, where the big wind came from. Sally says there's 3 degrees of awareness and the last test is courage. Those aren't tests of awareness. Courage is not awareness. Then all of a sudden it turns out Robotnik was here with his swap bots out of nowhere. Did he track them down here using heartbeat detectors? Or is this the stupidest coincidence ever? I get that there has to be some antagonist, but it makes no sense for him to be here. I'm so sick of these guys. Sonic creates some dust to cover the heroes' escape by using super speed, and so I think about how much I wish there were villains other than Robotnik and Snively in this show. Since this non-Robotropolis setting was just begging for a villain other than him. Like, this could have been the perfect place to introduce a magical villain in the realms of Ixis or Mogul. Having Robotnik show up leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Bunny says this is the first time they've heard the wind in the temple, and Sally decides to follow the sound. Antoine gets startled by a giant spider and he wastes time lying that he's okay. Oh, I guess the spider wasn't giant, it was just a shadow on the wall. He accidentally found the way forwards because he was startled, and he wastes more time lying that he's always knowing what he's doing. It's not a good sign when it feels like everything a character says is worthless filler wasting space. Has he ever said anything important? Sonic is tracked down by a flying machine that the villains can see him in camera footage through. Sally greets Sonic, and she tells Nicole to boot up the Breath of Mobius diagram. The Breath of Mobius runs along the side of the ruins, and Sonic could hide in the alcove only to get hit by the winds. Sonic insists he can outrun any wind. Sonic taunts the flying machine, trying to lure it somewhere separate from the heroes. I really hate that Robotnik is in this episode, by the way. It feels so arbitrary. Every minute that he's in the episode annoys me. Sonic makes him think that he's in a hole, and it certainly sounds like his voice is coming from the hole. Oh, he is in there. Good, that makes sense. He hides in a square block in the hole tunnel, and he takes advantage of the fact that the big wind always happens at a certain time, using a check of his gun. See, this would actually make sense for a test of intelligence. As a result, the wind sends the villains away and off the mountain. This place reminds me of Angel Island so much. It feels like it could have been a floating island, and the plot would have been the same. I'm guessing that the villains won't die or even be injured from being sent falling off a cliff. There's some time wasted as Sonic says he has one condition, and Sally says she's afraid to ask, and Sonic says that condition. He wants to be the one to fly the plane. The heroes are nervous at how recklessly he flies the plane, and then we see Robotnik and Snively climbing back up to the mountain. God forbid they got hurt at all, that would show consequences. This was a pretty creative episode. For once, we're not in Robotropolis. Good! Instead, they make up a new location. A mountain with some mystical wind that always shows up at a certain time, and the heroes have to take some tests to reach the magic scrolls. We better see these scrolls in later episodes, or the whole plot will be a waste of time in the long run. But anyways, the tests themselves were pretty stupid. It's not a test of intelligence to just happen to see an armchair because a beam of light blatantly shows it to you. A toddler could have figured that out. It's not a test of spirit if Sally randomly got lucky picking the right scroll. They could have been killed. And what was the test of courage? I thought they already got the scroll before getting to that test. How did Sonic even get to the mountain without being in the plane? Did he jump really far? I hated that Sally didn't immediately know that she needed Sonic to save the plane when it should have been obvious to a smart person, and she took forever to thank him, although I'm pleasantly surprised that she did. But it shows how annoyingly her character interaction with Sonic is written that he even was surprised at her thanking him, which is a basic thing I would expect any decent person to do to someone who saved your life. It's like they really wanted to have a tsundere character who's a sassy love interest, but failed miserably at it because that's what the Sonic franchise does best. Because you need to have tsunderes be endearing to have them work. Thank goodness the comic was my first exposure to Sally. She's much nicer there. Anyways, my biggest problem with the episode that eventually got me irritated at it, well aside from the fact that the secret scrolls are completely forgotten about in later episodes, is that Robotnik and Snively show up here out of complete nowhere. Why did they even need to be here? Couldn't the heroes have just had to deal with a wild bear? and that would be sent away by the wind? There's no foreshadowing to them showing up. There's no filler scene between them where they detect the heroes in a place and plot against them like there usually is. I know they're the only villains of the show, but come on, they could make more villains. I feel like the story could have taken place on Angel Island and had Knuckles be the villain, and the plot would have been exactly the same. The secret scrolls could be Echidna scrolls, and Knuckles could be the one having the flying machine go after Sonic because it'd be ancient Echidna tech. But sadly, I've heard that Knuckles only shows up in Sonic Underground in terms of retro Sonic cartoons, which is pretty mind-boggling. Well, at least the title of the episode actually matches the episode this time. Ultra Sonic didn't have any sort of super form for Sonic show up, and Sonic and Sally didn't even involve the real Sally for the most part. Though I prefer for the names of stories not to completely spoil the events in them. It's just that when a name is completely misleading, you get the wrong expectations, and the story you think is gonna happen ends up being more interesting than what does. Although often what does is good on its own. I was pleasantly surprised by Sonic and Sally though. I was worried it was just gonna be a filler shipping episode.